Speaking to you from beautiful Philadelphia, let's talk about the role of the subconscious. If you have seen Eraserhead or Blue Velvet or the TV series Twin Peaks, I ask you, are they depicting the subconscious? David Lynch is the director of the three titles I just mentioned, and his strategy for storytelling is to leave the fantastical open to interpretation. So whether or not this is what he meant to have happen, when I watched one of his films or saw the Twin Peaks TV show, my experience was that it absolutely described what it feels like to be an artist and have the subconscious have a presence in my life. I recently watched an interview with David Lynch, and he described his creative process as the people in the other room have the complete picture and they're throwing over parts of the picture, and your job as the artist is to put those pieces together. Who are these people in the other room? I want to completely honor David Lynch's intentions to leave his works open to interpretation, so in no way am I trying to say this is what he's depicting. And on the other hand, because his film and TV shows are open to interpretation, my takeaway from enjoying his art is, what is the role of the subconscious for the artist? If you're sitting in a room right now, I want you to imagine that you can remain sitting where you are, and at the same time you can stand up and get out of your body, and you can take a couple of steps away and look back at yourself sitting in the chair watching the computer. And then what you can do is you can look around the room and walk closer and closer to one of the walls of that room. And you can actually put your head through the wall. Your head could actually move unobstructed through the wall like a ghost. And when you look, there's a completely different environment, not the physical world at all, on the other side of that wall. Just so that I'm not confusing anyone here, I'll put it out there that I absolutely love science. I'm a huge fan of science. I don't believe in mind over matter. I don't, like as an example, I don't think wishful thinking is enough to make it so that a flat tire on my bike suddenly doesn't have a flat anymore. I think that there is a physical world and that it does have real consequences on our lives. That being said, practicing art, the fact that I practice art a majority of the time in my life, essentially it's a form of meditation, in that even though I'm doing things out here in the physical world, really what it's all about is what is happening in the mental world. And because I practice art so much, my reality as essentially a mental creature seems just as real, if not more real to me than the simulated physical world within my mind. Now, just because I can't experience the physical world directly, I can only experience it through a simulation in my mind, does not mean the physical world does not exist. It just means that equally I am also a mental creature who lives in a reality of mind that has its own laws of nature that are not necessarily the laws of nature that govern the physical world. What happens when we start working creatively is that parts of our subconscious want to participate, and to the extent that we encourage it and form relationships with different power personality forces in our subconscious can be a great benefit to working creatively. One thing that happens to me a lot, and I think it mostly is because I have a good bit of insomnia, is that I remain conscious or semi-conscious while falling asleep. And what happens in that process is I'll be waiting to go to sleep, and I will experience my personality, my thoughts and everything becoming unglued and falling into all these swarming different pieces of personality monsters with all their own intentions becoming unraveled and each kind of going off in their own direction. So at the beginning of Blue Velvet, when I watched this Technicolor, sunny, idyllic, everything's all right in America street, and then the camera pans down to under the grass, this swarming, carnivorous bugs, insects, shown close up in monstrous proportions. To me, it just blared subconscious, underlying the conscious experience. When you do your art, if you pay a little bit closer attention to what is happening in your mind, your eyes will start to open up and you will start to see things for how they really are. You can decide to pay attention when you do get that next idea. Pay a little bit closer attention and see if you can't see that there is a personality presence behind that idea. That it isn't just the idea being given to your conscious mind, but that there is some deeper part of your personality giving that to you. And the more that you can become aware of that personality, the stronger you can make connections with the untangible wilderness where all those great ideas come from. You don't need to stress out about becoming a mystic. That is, becoming someone who does make some lucid ventures into the wilderness of the subconscious. All you have to do is do your art. Your artwork, your creative, that is a meditation. And while you're doing it, each time you do it, if you spend a little bit more time paying attention to what is happening in your mind while you're doing your art, you'll start to gain gradually. The philosopher Plato, he described the experience of, he described the nature of humans as essentially creatures of mind this way. In the cave, we're in a cave, we're chained in a cave looking at a wall, and we see these shadows on the wall. And these shadows are created, do have to do with what happens in the world above, but also they're mere shadows. I don't want to get into philosophy too much here. What I want to do is offer some ways that you can start to utilize working with your own subconscious in your artwork. So our experience of our reality, the physical world, is being assembled moment by moment by, I think of them as these giant monsters in my own subconscious. So at any given time, like say there are one or two giant monsters that are assembling my reality when I'm working at home, and then when I'm at work there are like 3 or 4 different personality beings assembling my experience of reality there, because I'm in a different situation with different motivations and different needs and whatnot. The reason I think of them as monsters is because that's been my experience when I have these dreams of these monsters that essentially they're creatures of need, creatures of intention, and sometimes they seem so much stronger than me. One of the most important things to do is to begin to communicate with different factions of your subconscious. One of the greatest ways I like to do this is to put something up in my environment. As you can see on the wall, I put the concept drawings for my story, Terrible Immunity, up to where I can always see it. And basically, without me needing to put forth a great amount of focus, repeating one of these visual ideas over and over and over again, meditating on it, I have it up on the wall. And so in the background, in my subconscious, it's there as much as it's in my peripheral through my actual physical eyes. And every time I glance at it and when I look directly at it, it is an event occurring in my subconscious, and it is a form of communicating. It is helping to cause the different... In the subconscious, you don't have what you would consider stable personalities. You have these sort of like factions of intent personality that come together and work for a while, and they dissolve and emerge as different factions. And this is going on all the time. Every time you go to sleep at night, it's sort of like they all melt apart and go off and do their own thing and come back together in the morning. And by putting things up in a place where you work, near your desk or easel, you don't even need to look at them all the time, but put them up for the reason of you clearly stating somehow your wishes to this ocean of unformed personality that forms into these different forces of motivation. One time, meditation was taught to me as a discipline of trying to find the idea behind the idea, and then the idea behind that idea. And it can be a very difficult thing to do. So in piecemeal, while you're working creatively, when you're working with your creative ideas, become a little bit more aware of where they're coming from, and gradually, and let it happen over many years, you will get a sense for that other room that as David Lynch described, is that room where they have the complete pictures and they're just throwing pieces over to you, piece by piece. The conscious mind exists within the ego, and the ego generates the most distant experience of the real world for we humans. So those forces of the subconscious that are putting your personal reality together, they're accessing a much more direct, a much rawer experience of the real world. So there are many different areas of your subconscious that are actually a lot more intelligent than your conscious mind. The conscious mind overall likes things a certain way, likes to continue to see things a certain way and do things a certain way, in a very certain limited way. Whereas there are parts of your subconscious that can totally break off and do its own thing for a while and come back with new discoveries and that the conscious mind never could have reached, not in a million light years. So our job as the conscious part is to set up lines of communication. One thing you can do is you can write for 10 minutes each morning, and think of it as like automatic writing. You can just sit down, you can start writing, and leave yourself open to whatever ends up on the page, and try to let go of all control of what you're actually writing down. Don't critique it, and let it happen. And in that way, this very weak line of communication is established that over time can grow stronger and stronger, and then other lines also can be established, lines of communication. Warning, do not give up conscious control to any part of your subconscious. It's always a bad idea. You can talk to your subconscious. You can have a collaborative conversation with your subconscious. When you're looking at part of your story, you can, I talk to myself anyway, but, oh, look at this, there's something here that isn't quite fitting. Wow, what can I do to make that work better? And the next day I look at the same work of writing and I state the same thing to myself, knowing that eventually the answer will come out of the blue. Practice critical thinking and thinking more clearly. This is one of the most powerful ways we can access the subconscious. What we are doing by doing that is we are pulling nets of great new original ideas up into the light. When we have a feeling about something but haven't verbalized it yet, if we, in our mind, like a meditation, look at it, try to make it more substantial to our experience by paying attention to it, thinking more clearly about it. Okay, we have a feeling that this part of this story is, what is it? What is this feeling that we're having? And by thinking more clearly about everything that we do in our art, when we can bring it into the light of consciousness and look at it and recognize it for what it is, that is how the conscious mind can serve as a great power for the subconscious mind, and in the same way the subconscious is serving as a great power for the conscious mind. By verbalizing things, taking things apart analytically, trying to make tangible things that before we have these feelings about but haven't quite put into words, that is how the conscious mind receives what the subconscious is trying to give to us. Pay more attention to the background. In our daily lives, a lot of the times we have things where our ego is saying, hey, shaking us, pay attention to this. This is what you need to focus on right now. But there's a multitude of other things that, a little tapping saying, hey, this over here is going on, and we're hardly, sometimes not even aware of it consciously at all. But it's there with us the whole time. We're sitting on the bus and our foot is falling asleep, and we subconsciously we're very aware of it, but consciously we have no idea. And there's this a little tapping on our awareness. Hey, pay attention, your foot is falling asleep, till finally, oh my God, my foot, and you shake it and move it around. Well, there might be something about the story you're working on where for months there's a little tapping. A little tapping on your shoulder. Hey, pay attention to this over here. The title, I don't like the title. Change the title, do something about the title. And we're consciously paying attention, we're barely aware. So try each day, try to become a little bit more consciously aware of that multitude of information being trying to, they're all doing what they can to get your attention. They're waving their little subconscious arms, they're jumping up and down, and only some of them get your attention. But if you can become more and more conscious of more of them, and in that way get a lot more information to work with. I'm just giving you my perspective, some of the things I've learned and some of the ways I frame my experience. If you have any further, I'm sure that there are a lot of different experiences and realizations about this. Please leave a comment. Thank you for watching. If you like my videos and want to get me back, please hit the like button, subscribe, tell a friend, leave a comment. You can super boost my video efforts by sharing through Twitter, Stumbled Upon, Facebook, Reddit, all those. Please take the time to check out my illustrated story put in video episodes at solomation.com. It's a story called Terrible Immunity. I'd greatly appreciate it if you went and checked it out. I've got a link below for t-shirts, that if you buy one of those t-shirts, a Solomation t-shirt, any money I make goes towards my artistic efforts, putting more of these videos out and working on Terrible Immunity. I hope your writing goes great. As always, I hope it's a wonderful adventure of discovery, and have a good day.